Look how pretty that turned out. It's really nice. Hello! So my YouTube channel is started. So this is a great opportunity for me to show you how I make my sourdough starter discard focaccia. I don't really measure it, so don't come at me in the comments if I'm not putting like precise measurements. I just eyeball it. I'll give you approximate measurements, but it's actually really forgiving, and this is the discard that you're throwing away out of your sourdough starter anyways. So, you know, easy peasy. I just kind of stirred this up a little, and you can see how stringy it is. This is like literally, I let it go too long without feeding it, but I'm just going to dump about like 80% of it into this bowl. Okay, experimenting with new camera angles here. Okay, so I'm just really going to dump out most of what's in here. When I make my sourdough, I definitely measure because I want it to come out perfectly, and it's a very long and involved process. So I do want my sourdough bread to come out perfect, but these sourdough discard focaccias that I make, they come out good every time, no matter what I do. So I'm really into it. So if you can see, it's really just the stuff that's left around the edges. So when you're feeding your sourdough discards, so this is my other one. This one I created myself in LA. This one I got from my cousin in New York. So it's like my East Coast, West Coast sourdough starters. And when I make this focaccia, I mix them. And when I make bread, I like to do a couple loaves with each. I'll make 2 different batches. So I like to use a mix of whole wheat and regular all-purpose flour when I do these focaccias. I use this organic, non-GMO all-purpose flour to feed my sourdough starters. So first things first, I'm going to feed my starters. It's probably time to switch jars because it's getting a little bit of crust on it. But I just put my bowl right underneath where I'm pouring the flour just in case it misses. The extra flour just goes in the bowl of my focaccia. And however much starter is in there is about how much flour I want to add to feed it. The same amount of flour. Perfect. That's a little extra just in case I forget to feed it tomorrow on time. And this one I'll do the same thing. So maybe a tiny bit more. And then, so I just keep this little quarter cup measuring cup in my flour bag. Now I'll probably put about a cup of flour into my starter discard focaccia mix. Okay, now second step to feeding our starter is I'm going to add water. So we have equal parts basically of starter and flour and water. So in this one I like to keep it a little bit more dense, like thicker, lower hydration level. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of water. Filtered water, always use filtered water, not tap water. I use the filtered water that comes out of our fridge. Different minerals and additives in the water can cause issues with your starter. I use the filtered water out of my fridge and I've never had an issue. I usually just try to get it to room temperature though before, and then I just start with a chopstick, scraping down the sides to get all that starter that was stuck to the sides mixed back in, and you just want it liquidy like pancake batter. So I'll do the other one. This one I'm just gonna try to do the same amount of water that I did flour, and that's it. So my starters are fed. I don't know why I can't say that word today. The starters are fed, they're back in the cabinet, and in this bowl I have the sourdough starter discard. I've added a cup of all-purpose flour, and then because sourdough starter loves whole grain, it loves it. It like feeds off of it, it loves the nutrients. I'm adding about a half a cup of whole grain flour, and then I did a cup of the all-purpose flour, and I'm just gonna add water to this and mix it together with a spatula. Then I'll show you what I'm gonna add. Okay, so I'm just mixing this together. It is like a damp, shaggy, like thick kind of batter. I would compare it more to like a thick batter than a dough because it's not going to stick together in a ball. It's very sticky, which is just what we want. It smells like sourdough. And then what sets pizza or focaccia apart from bread is the olive oil and the salt that you put in it. So I'm just going to add a little bit of sea salt and a drizzle. That's probably like 1 to 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, and then I'm going to mix this into the dough. And then super easy, I just cover it and let it sit for like 3 to 4 hours until I'm ready to cook it. So this is what it looks like. It's really pretty, it's really glossy, it's nice. This looks like a dough now. So this is just a sourdough discard focaccia. Super easy. It almost works like packaged yeast because this will be ready to cook in 4 hours, which is what it would be if it was packaged yeast. And the reason why that works is because I've used like 4 times the amount of my sourdough starter than I would in a regular pizza recipe. So I know that it's not like the professional way to make pizza or bread or focaccia, and I do actually make focaccia and pizza the correct way, where you let it use a tiny bit of starter, you mix it together and let it ferment over like a 12 to 36 hour period, depending on what you're making. But I have found that I absolutely love this. It's really easy, and it takes the scariness, the dauntingness out of focaccia and bread making. Not to mention, it's a super easy, super delicious way to use that sourdough discard that you have, so you don't have to throw it out. I think it's time for a swim. Okay, sorry for this awkward angle, but I need both hands, so I had to put the video on the thing. So here's the focaccia after it rose. You saw it earlier. So I'm just gonna release it from the edges a little bit. You can see that it's like nice and puffy. This has been sitting for 6 hours. It probably would have been best to cook it when it had been sitting for like 4 to 5, but whatever. This is why I love this recipe, or this way to make sourdough discard focaccia, because it's super forgiving. It's still gonna turn out amazing. So I just oiled this copper grilling mat. You can totally use parchment paper, you can use a silicone baking, whatever works for you. But I have my baking sheet heating in the oven already. You always wanna cook focaccia or pizza or bread on a pan that's already super hot. So that's already in the oven at 450. So I just took the bowl out. Look how beautiful that turned out. I'm just gonna dip my fingers in this olive oil, and then this is literally all I do. I like just pull it out to the edges. So Marco really likes it thick. I like some parts of it to be thinner and crispier. You can see that it's like breaking apart. That's because it's not a real dough, like the glutens didn't develop, so it's not going to stretch really nicely like a normal pizza crust would. But you know, who cares, because it's really delicious and it's easy and it doesn't take any kneading or any of that. So I'm just push those holes closed, and that's it. Like literally, I just, yeah, like pretend like I'm playing the piano. That's it. So the parts that are thicker, I kind of spread towards the parts that are thinner to close up those little holes. And if some parts like there, it's a little thinner, but that's okay. I like that. And then now I'm just gonna cover it in some sea salt. And olive oil. And then you can cover it with little baby tomatoes. You can cover it with olives, rosemary, oregano, whatever your heart desires. Ooh, that's a lot of olive oil, but you know, that's where it starts to really get fun. Zucchini flowers are delicious on it, whatever you like. So this is it out of the oven. I ended up throwing a little rosemary on that half, but the other half we just left sea salt and olive oil. So then we can add whatever we want to it. Yummy, yummy. So I just cut it with scissors, and it's light and delicious and has those beautiful air bubbles in the middle. So good. Key to super crispy, delicious focaccia crust is that you want to put it on some kind of grate and let air circulate on the bottom of it before you slice it for a couple minutes, and that'll help it get a little bit crispier and crunchier, especially on the bottom. When we took this out of the oven a minute ago, it was like actually pretty soft, and it's starting to get a little crunchy on the outside now, but it's staying soft on the inside. Doesn't count if you don't taste it, right? So yummy. Really, so yummy. So easy. Look at all those bubbles. Yeah. I just feel like, why make focaccia any other way when it can be this simple and this delicious, right? I really hope you guys enjoyed the sourdough discard focaccia recipe inspired by Roman Pizza Bianca from Bella Italia. Like, follow, and subscribe for more travel-inspired recipes. Buon appetito! Look how pretty it came out! Tre colori focaccia! Yummy, yummy!